I'm back. What's up, guys? Sorry I missed you guys last week. Happy Thursday. It's episode number 34?
34.
Listen, we have a great guest today.
We do have a pretty good guest.
We have an awesome guest
I've
today.
been getting to know him a little bit over there.
So, in the last couple months. We have Charles. Charles, say your last name for me one more time.
Goetzinger.
Charles Goetzinger. Charles is a personal trainer, been in the cannabis industry. How you doing, my man?
Doing well. How are you guys?
Great. So listen, Charles, I'm so happy you got to come on the show. This is a topic that we've been talking about, right? This whole fitness and cannabis deal. We had on the Puff Tough crew to come talk about it, and we want to bring you on too because just talk a little bit more. But first, I want to dive into your story, right? You have an awesome story, and I want to talk about it. So tell us a little bit about how your journey.
I'll try and do a abridged version. Obviously, I used to work with the government. I was out in D.C. I worked with a facility security branch in Quantico, and at the time I was I was coming down from about 270 pounds and trying to diet down, avoid basically miserable out there. So I was drinking a significant amount, kind of ended up going down, kind of basically being almost a borderline alcoholic. Ended up getting a car accident that pulled me out of the DOD work. I was on bed rest for about 8 months, so I ended up getting laid off. But during that 8 months, I also kind of went from using alcohol to then opiate dependency. So I've had to start fighting that. But coming from government work, kind of cannabis was shunned hard, because it was if you used it, your job was gone. So that was never an option. So you just kind of drank. That was your only legal way to remedy any sadness or anything like that, which everyone knows is not at all a remedy.
An outlet.
Yeah. And so once I was removed from that, I didn't really have to worry about it anymore. Someone suggested maybe trying cannabis to ease the stepping out of the opioid use, because my prescription's running to an end. Anyone that's been down that road knows the most terrifying thing on earth is when you have that dependency and you get down to that last 1 week worth of pills and you don't know if that next round is coming or not. And at the time, Virginia was going through a really heavy abuse problem. So the volume I needed the pills, because the accident was so severe, I was getting hundreds at a time. And they would have to go, and I'd have to go sometimes 3-4 different pharmacies to fill an entire order, because they'd have a 25 pill cap at that specific pharmacy.
Oh, you could only get 25 of that one.
Because there was such a massive abuse problem at that time. I think in that year there was 300 million pills prescribed across the country.
That's incredible. That's crazy.
It's ridiculous.
I seriously don't believe that's gotten really any better.
No, it hasn't.
I think it's only gotten worse, honestly.
Because there's still so much more money in that pharmaceutical, because they can charge the $100 or charge the insurance as much as they kind of want to charge them, and so it's a little bit different for things. Yeah. But it ended up kind of the cannabis part really kind of stuck with me, and that it worked. And all of a sudden, not only did I move off of the dependency part, I really had kind of a more severe PTSD right after, where I couldn't even talk about the accident. If I would even try and tell someone what happened or even just mention it, I would just break down hysterically crying. And and that's a very unusual thing for me. I was not a very emotional or in touch with my EQ type person back then. Mm-hmm. And so once I had the cannabis, all of a sudden I could kind of take a step back, or kind of outside of myself, and then look back and kind of reflect kind of on what happened, where I have had that almost kind of safe space to process it. And then that part intrigued me even more. It was oh my God, there's this whole other avenue of it. And then once I kind of moved out to Vegas, I started learning about the terpenes and all the different ways you can kind of steer it. And then that kind of pieced together more knowledge of what I didn't understand, but I kind of had an idea on, where I knew there were some strains I would get where I would eat less, which surprised me, because that's not normally you would think you would eat heavier with cannabis. Yeah. Then kind of finding out that cookie strains are normally higher in humulene. So humulene is going to nix your appetite more than any other terpene. So you get something high in that. Not only if you like cookies, I like because that's going to have that indica high to it, and so you'll have that come down, but you're not going to have the munchies following it like you're going to have on a heavier one, like a black Afghan, something like that.
Right. So let's talk about let's talk about the transition from the opiates through cannabis, right? So how long were you struggling with the opiates?
Opiates, because I like to say dependency over addiction with it, because I do have a very addictive personality, but that part was I didn't choose ever to do them. I tried actually going off of them, and that's when I realized that I had to find something to do, because no one ever explained to me dependency. And so they just let me out of the hospital, and I got to the point where I knew I needed them. I had friends that have died from pill use, and so I was like, I do not want to go down that path. So I flushed an entire 100 pills of it, and then my body just went into complete shutdown without it.
Right. So and that's what happens, right? The withdrawals.
Yeah,
right?
The withdrawals hit in extremely hard, and I was just laying on my bathroom floor, and luckily I had a friend that knew he had gone through something similar, so he kind of knew what was going on. He came over, and it was a whole we had to go in, and my doctor, I had to go talk to my doctor, and then my doctor had to call the police department and be like, yeah, we understand, we know how the story sounds, but we do need another 100 of these pills given to this person, and because he's going to get really sick. It took a whole day for them to kind of arrange it and make it happen where legally the prescription got cleared, and it was I was like, wow, this is crazy. Yeah, I have to get off of this thing. And they weren't. I asked for Suboxone. I asked for anything to kind of come off it, and they were just kind of like, no, just you're still healing. Just here's another 100 more. And
keep leaning off it.
There was no getting off it, because they knew every month I was going back, it was I think $1,500-$1,600 per visit doctor.
Yeah, of course there's.
And so every time, and you were booked for 2 months out. That's why there were so many pills at a time.
So what was the milligrams that they had you on?
I was doing it kind of tapered down. I was extremely heavy. I was on 3 or 4 different kinds. I was on time release morphine right when I got out, along oxycodone, an instant hit, kind of more instant hit morphine for if I had more bad attacks that were keeping me up, because all my ribs were shattered.
Yeah.
So I had 13 breaks all down the left side. 3 went through my lung. And so from there, I got my left lung only works about maybe 50%. And so I do, it's what then kind of led me into bodybuilding, where I kind of found a no cardio approach to dieting down, was just because doing the cardio was such a kind of trigger for anxiety for me, because after the accident, the main issue was I could never breathe. I'd have tubes. There was multiple surgeries to keep my lung inflated, and then redrain it, and then it collapsed again, so they had to put in more tubes. And it was that was kind of the main thing or really the only thing I remember the hospital, was the constantly just gasping for air. Have you seen Deadpool? Yeah, where they're in that tank, they describe that tank where it kind of just shuts you down to that. Yeah, I would be at that point. Well, I couldn't even see that. I'm good. In the theater, I didn't I'd get up and walk out, because it was just, that's something a lot of people wouldn't be able to empathize with. But going through that, it was something I very much could, and so I've kind of avoided building the lung back up a little bit. And but that's why I try and explain. People give me shit about the smoking, but they don't understand. Smoking cannabis and smoking a cigarette are very different things.
Yeah.
How it hits it doesn't. If you have a strain with the terpenes, you have a strain that higher in beta pinene, and that alone is a bronchodilator. So that's gonna help if you ever hit a strain that makes your lungs kind of feel you feel it all expand your lungs. They actually opens you up more.
Right.
And so it's not just cut and dry. Smoking is bad.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's important, really important about your story, especially since we're kind of in the opioid crisis, right?
Yeah.
And I had a friend that had a friend die last week from it. You know what I mean? It's all around us, right?
Yeah. So I personally had a friend that passed away from it last week.
And I've had my bouts with it, and people who followed my story. But so let's talk about the point in your life when you actually decide that you're educated on cannabis, right? In the past you haven't had the confidence or the willingness to be able to go through the withdrawals, right?
Yeah.
The sick part that keeps you on the opiate. So what was it about cannabis that helped you through that process?
Mostly just kind of the numb down of it. It was the main thing. Anyone I've ever talked to kind of had similar with me on my story was there's this joint pain that comes in when you start to go through withdrawal, and it's just almost like a cement drying, and we're just moving, feels like everything just hurts. It's like having a ridiculous body flu.
Yeah.
And just having cannabis, kind of gave you a way to combat that and kind of numb it down enough where it wasn't just dominating your life. That pain wasn't always so present right in front of you. You can kind of distract yourself with it a little bit. And so the escapism part of it played into actual benefit in that, where in other circumstances, yes, you want, like, you don't want to just be able to numb out from the world, but in some circumstances, fuck yeah, you do. Like, you need to. That's how you heal. You have to lower your trauma down. That's what I think the main thing it provided me was it lowered the trauma, or lowered what my body was going through enough stress wise that it could handle the trauma, like to a level that it could handle and go on, take on the trauma without also combating the stress.
Nice. And
so when you can kind of separate them like that and just have to deal with this one thing, like, okay, this happened to me, what do I do from here? Instead of going in with the emotion, having that voice in your head telling you all the things, like, this is going to be forever, like, this is how you are now, and then it kind of, pain makes you think that it's how it's going to be forever. That's why it's so hard to get out of being the forefront of your mind, is when it's going on, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to live like this the rest of my life.
I can remember having those thoughts too. And I was on methadone for 5 years, and that was my solution to my opioid addiction, because I wanted to work and be, have a job and raise my kids and families, right? You can't do that on opiates. And I was pushed or influenced by doctors to get onto the methadone program, because you can just take it one day and you could be manageable, right? Without any withdrawals, right? Geez, man. So you got past it, right?
Yeah, I got.
How long did it take, right? That's what I'm talking about.
When did it start? Like timeline wise, like what year did like this, like?
It was a short side. Like for me, I was able to pull out quickly because I had enough friends. It was about 6 months of dependency, and then the coming off it was, it took me kind of just really a few weeks to really roll through all of the painful emotion, or the parts of it. I still, like, even still now, like, I won't ever touch them, just because you have one. It's like every ounce of that withdrawal comes back, even if it's a minor dose of it. It's like the body remembers, and it's like, oh wait, no, come on, keep them coming again. It's that full pain starts to reset in.
But it's manageable with cannabis.
Yeah, with cannabis, you don't. It gives you. Like, I don't want to say you don't want to roll the addiction into cannabis. That's one danger I think people also need to address, is that, and that's one I made that mistake too, of over medicating with it at the beginning, and when you transition, and there's a kind of downside of, everyone knows that when you're too high, there is a downside. You get in your own head, and you get a wrong strain. So street weed, if you're using it for therapeutic purposes, street weed's a pretty dangerous game, because you have no idea what you're about to smoke.
100%.
And you get something that you get a very heady sativa, and you're a high anxiety person, highly neurotic. You're gonna go down that. You're gonna have that rabbit hole, and it's not gonna be a good time.
Let's talk about some of the terpenes that, like, let's say maybe you're on, you go to the doctor every month, and you're on Lortabs or opiates, or let's talk about some cannabis that you could pick out that has a certain kind of terpenes, right, that can aid you in getting off.
Like myrcene, like the obvious one. So anything higher myrcene is going to be what hits the body, and it's going to give you, if your back hurts, you want a myrcene strain. That's what does it. It's not just going to be just the cannabis alone. It will help, because the THC helps as an anti-inflammatory. And so that part will help, but the myrcene part will carry through and kind of hit the body a little bit harder. Whereas if you have something that's going to be more like a terpenoline, that's kind of more, it's like the myrcene for the mind, where it's going to slow your mind down a little bit. That's why, like, a Jack Herrera is a strain that's kind of always known to be high in terpenoline, but it's a very stony one. And even though it's a straight sativa, it still kind of gives you that giggy, forgetful, like rabbit holing high, where you just kind of go off on a tangent on something, whereas other sativas will kind of have you a little bit more alert to the world. And so, but the problem with terpenoline, when you're in a lot of pain, that rabbit hole can shift into that pain where you're starting to think, oh my God, like this hurts. And then all of a sudden, that's all you can think about, and your brain's slowed down to the point that you've just gone down that rabbit hole. And then that's when the anxiety attacks, panic attacks, things like that start to come. And so there's positives and negatives to each one. Limonene, another one that's a very heady one. That's the what dictates how, for our purposes, dictates the head high part of it. If it's a higher limonene strain, then you can expect more of a heady high than anything with myrcene. So you kind of have, you'll notice on indicas, there's a lot of times you'll have one or the other. Then there's a few strains that are higher in both, but you don't really see a high count of both of those in a lot of strains, like limonene and terpinolene. There's not a high amount of those. I think Wizard Stone or something like that, like I've only seen like one time in that combo, and that was a very unique hybrid of a high. But yeah, I'd say there's one that I'm really curious about that I've only found one time. It was called Cymene, and I looked it up, and they said it's like 4 or 5 times more potent of a body effect than myrcene is supposed to be. I'm trying to remember what strain it was. Strain from Nevada made, like one of their Kabunki ones had it, and I've only ever seen that terpene one time. I've never seen it on anything else again, but it was phenomenal at the time. I was going through a lot of sinus issues, so I had a lot of pain in my jaw, and it just completely nixed it out. And so what got me curious, like, well, there's no myrcene in the strain. I'm like, so what is doing this? And it was the Cymene. And so if you can find something with that in it, that'd be another good one. But I would say myrcene, Cymene, caryophyllene. But I would, like I said, the two I would have more avoid is going to be anything limonene wise, just because it does keep you more in your head. And so if you are going through pain or you're going through that dark thought, like if you're out, especially if you're out of the opiates and you're going through that dark part of it, you don't want to really have that voice in your head very active. You want that to quiet down. And so there's, outside of that though, like there's really not too much other than
that sounds great.
Those real
sedative.
Those terpenes, but you want to just it is very important to pay attention to just finding those. Like it's that simple. I was thinking trying to make it there would be more to it, but there's really not. It's just look for a high myrcene if you want that, if you need that body to calm down. If you want your head, like if you want to just relax and be real loopy, get the limonene. Caryophyllene plays into all of it. I can't say it's kind of the volume switch for all of it, just because it activates receptors. So the more receptors you have active, the more the terpenes are going to hit you, obviously, and the cannabis is going to hit your cannabinoids.
Nice.
So you come. I just want to come full circle on the story. So you come, the car accident happens. Your pains, you're back east, you're living out there, and then you get yourself clean. You start smoking cannabis. Do you move? Are you in Las Vegas?
I stayed out there for about 2 years after the accident, because because the majority of the damage was broken bone. The insurance denied me physical therapy, saying that there's no physical therapy for broken ribs. You just kind of let them heal and go about your life. And they didn't address that, all the torn muscles and all of that. I'd actually got my personal training cert a couple years prior, when I was first wanted to start losing weight, because I couldn't afford a personal trainer. So I was like, I'll just become one. Then if I know what they know, then I can just do it myself. And so I've collected and harvested knowledge for years and years. I just kind of half-assed it and never really applied it, and kind of just did the yo-yo thing like everyone else. And I got down to about 220 on my own after the car accident. Or by the time of the car accident, by the time I got to the hospital, I was about 167.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I was in ICU for about 4.5 weeks. And so, and with, you don't eat when you're on the pill, like all of that stuff. I think I ate like 5 or 6 pieces of pineapple a day for that entire 4 weeks, and that was it. So I was I couldn't walk without holding walls for, I had about maybe 20 minutes. I could be on my feet at a time when I was finally cleared to actually start going out and doing things. But once I actually started going to the gym again, they gave me that clear where I could get back to actually working out. Like I was like, well, I know all of this stuff. Like I got basically a free pass to be 80 pounds in this whole ordeal. Like I can rebuild however I want. And you could push right through to bone, because everything was so soft, because nothing had been used or engaged for so long. And so I just started I moved into I had a very nice settlement came with a car accident, and I kind of Gatsby'd my way into the bodybuilding world, and I didn't have to work. I had all the finances I needed, so I went out and I got a really nice condo that was like a penthouse over National Harbor. I rented for a year, and at in community gym, so I didn't have to go anywhere. And I just went down and just worked out 2 or 3 times a day. I could afford anything I wanted, diet wise, supplement wise, and the rehab, like self-rehabbing went really well, and I got bored, so I decided to go into, I was like, well, I'll just do a bodybuilding show now. And went in, did that, got last place, but a lot of people kind of were, I noticed I had a good reception at it, though, when I got there, but I had no freaking clue what I was doing when I got there, because the guy I ended up hiring kind of hung me out to dry. I guess he didn't really like me. He just took the money and charged me a significant amount for basically nothing. He didn't teach me the posing. I walked out, did my poses, filed them back to the stage. I think I got 28th out of 28th place in it. But when I was leaving, a guy told me, try one more show and get a better coach. So I had the funds. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna get the best coach I can find. So I found a guy that specialized in the no cardio preps just because my lung was bad. So I was like, perfect. I don't have to do any cardio. And this guy has a very strong resume. 10 weeks later, I won overall champion at my next show, and then won a few more shows after that. And then while I was doing that, the personal training background started building up more and more because it just went hand in hand. I was in the gym all day. Might as well train people
make money off
and
it.
So then once I won a few shows out there, ended up going to the Nationals in 2015, and I got 20 out of my weight class of about 70 people, so I was happy with that because I was only one of the very few actual natural competitors that went. I was significantly undersized, but then that world really had my eye, and I invested so much into the bodybuilding world at that point that I was like, I wasn't working with the government anymore. I really did not like the East Coast, so I was like, well, where do I want to go? And I remember I came out here in 2014 with a friend, and it just, ever since I got off the plane, the moment I stepped off into Vegas, it just kind of, it hit. Everything fit. I got in, it was just this whole different lifestyle. I came in, it was, out in the East Coast, you have a lot of the families take care of families. So you have people having jobs that, when I do rideshare, you have these title positions where their dads own a company, so they're the VP of this, but really they just get a paycheck every couple of weeks. Whereas you came out here, now you saw a kid my age had a Ferrari, and it was his. He bought it. He had and he owned his own business. Now I talked to another guy, and he had his. It was just all these people that were actually doing stuff with their lives, and that just really kind of hit me. It was just a very entrepreneur friendly lifestyle.
It is
hustle town.
Yeah, it is a hustle town, man.
It's the capital for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, dude,
there's nowhere else I've ever seen more equipped
city of dreams.
Yeah, dude. I know. I was born and raised in Las Vegas, and so I feel what you're saying because I feel that within me, right? That was just a little bit of being ingrained, that hustler mentality, right? Because people hustle here, man.
Yeah. It's an advantage. It's a massive advantage. Yeah. I grew up in the white picket fence era where that was all your goal was just to be able to fund this specific one lifestyle, and in the Midwest, that's pretty you can do it on $8 an hour, so you really don't have to hustle that hard to do it. I had friends that worked at cashiers and they owned homes, and so that's not going to happen out here. You got to actually hustle. It used to be like that, I guess, but nowadays that's not.
Back in the day,
you have
sure.
a very different, the people growing up here are getting to see a whole different kind of world than anyone else in this country gets to see. The capitalism works here very well. You can I moved here with literally nothing. I just packed I decided to move out here. I flew out, got an apartment, went back, packed my shit, and drove out here. And and made an entire life off of literally no plans and nothing. There's not a lot of places that you can do that where you just show up and if you work you get paid. No one should be broke in Vegas. There's so many ways to make money here.
That is true.
That I can't respect anything. You can struggle, because you're not always gonna have all the funds you need. But
of course,
there's a billion ways to make money here, and I couldn't comprehend that as someone coming from a different culture coming in. I was trying to find who's gonna let me make money, and then Vegas though you have that mindset of I'm gonna make money off everything and everyone. Everything is an option here. It's wild how much money it changes hands here every day. I would drop people off doing rideshare. I'm they're my age. I'm picking them up in $1 million houses, and what do you do? I own a fly swatter drop ship. And we're who would even think of that? But it worked. They're not chasing the sexy dollar. They're chasing the dollar.
Yeah,
and that's how they're making a killer living on it. It's like they're excavating up the fucking mountain at this point, building mansions, because there's so many people that need mansions in Vegas that they have to bulldoze a mountain down now.
And you know, it helps that Las Vegas is a very tax friendly, Nevada in general is a very tax friendly town, so you know, you don't get taxed very hard on your money here. So a lot of people from California are starting to bring their money here.
Unless you're in the cannabis industry.
Unless you're in the cannabis industry, then they want to tax you.
Unless you're in the one thing that we're here for.
Out the ass, legit. Like, I don't know if you guys understand this, but I'm just gonna give you some game real quick. If you are a cultivation and you grow flower, okay? You grow some flower, you want to sell that flower. You go, oh, I'm going to turn this flower into a pre-roll. There's obviously taxes on that flower, right? And you have to pay those taxes. But as soon as you take that flower and turn it into a pre-roll, you get an extra 15% tax.
That's another tax.
Slapped on top of you, just because you took the flower and put it in a cone and put it in a nice little tube. Maybe a nice little tube, maybe it was a shitty little tube. I don't know. And that 15% tax is not even based off the price of your product. It's based off this thing called fair market value. And fair market value for a pre-roll is wholesale is $5.75. And I know as a consumer, I'm buying pre-rolls for $10-ish on the regular, $10 to $15.
Yeah, so you buy them in bulk, you were getting them for 10 at some places. You're 10 to, I'd say 10 to 14 is
10 if you're lucky.
10 if you're lucky.
Yeah.
10 if you're like us, and some really affordable.
Yeah.
But the thing is here is that's where your money's going, people. Like, when you go and buy a product, it's not going back to the cultivation or production. It's going back to the Department of Taxation. Majority of it.
The rainy day fund.
Wherever that's going.
Wherever they took the student, the $30 million that was supposed to go to schools that they pulled back like 2 days later. Like,
So, you know, a lot of these cannabis companies, going back to like what you're saying, like, you know, don't have a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we're bootstrapping it over here, and it's definitely not easy.
It ain't easy. It's not supposed to be easy, though.
It never was supposed to be easy.
But yeah.
Sorry, I got off topic there. Just I want to say, I want to come back though. So you can come back out to Vegas.
But that's what kind of went through my head was like this place always. I saw that the first time I came here, and then when I came back, like, it was exactly what I remembered it to be. And so I kind of rolled the dice on it. I flew out here, got in the place, then flew back, packed my car, and just only took out what I could and bought just basically new shit when I got here, and started a whole new life out here. And that kind of, I knew it was going, like, the plan always was to get into the cannabis industry. And so when I first moved out here, I lived by the Sunset Essence. And so I go there kind of when I could afford to blow $5-6 on a joint back when I was med only.
Yeah.
I go in like right after the gym and utilize that. I stood out and kind of built FaceTime with the staff, and then I kind of waited for more people to kind of talk to me about things. Then the manager started talking to me about fitness stuff, and I started building relationships with them. And then once recreation was coming, and I knew the job fairs and openings were going to start coming, I used that to my advantage and started used that as my kind of fitness as my in.
I love that story.
And
because so many people ask, how do I get into the cannabis industry? So many fucking people ask, how do I get into the cannabis industry? There's a perfect example. Go somewhere as much as possible so they get to know your face, make a connection, and wait for your opportunity. And that's it. That's all you have to do. It's all about patience, people.
Because getting back in after being out, like I said, like, it's hard to get back in because every position's getting 40, 50, 60 applicants instantly, and half of them are not just someone on the outside coming in. They're already industry people that already have their agent cards.
Yeah.
They already have, like, they're a safer bet.
Yeah.
100%. And so they can bring the person in. And I've noticed even kind of regardless of what people get fired for from different places, I've stayed kind of more on the inside of the information of a lot of the places I've been or companies, and some people have been let go for unfavorable things, and then they're at somewhere else with the same level job. I'm like, but they know it's a basic slap on the wrist. They know the person's gonna be there and know what they're doing. Yeah. And so rather than having to train someone brand new, there's a ton of turnover in the industry.
Tons.
And so, which is because it's not what people think. Like, I think that's what I enjoyed the budtending part as the teaching people and getting a chance to talk to all these different people. But at the core of it, you kind of have to be aware that it's a lot of talking to people. Like, it's a lot of social engagement. You cannot be in there and just quietly set things down, especially now. And I love that it's becoming more places that are tips and keep your own tips.
Yeah.
Because that encourages you to be better and to give me more.
Yeah.
Because I love when I get a budtender that can come in. Like, I have at the dispensary of Gibson. They all, like, I come in, they know what I like, they know what strains I get. So they'll come in, they'll show me different ones. Like, oh, here, I know you like lime. And they remember those little things, and then I'll throw in the extra $3-4 in a tip jar because, like, thank you.
Yeah.
You're doing good at your job, and we need good budtenders with that, because that education part is what's going to make it legal. Once people understand that it is a usable, viable option to treat things and help you manage things, and not just something to get high and eat a sandwich, then it's going to be a lot easier to make it legal. It's even people like my parents and stuff, like, mentally, they're coming around to the idea of that, okay, like, this isn't just something that you get high and go to a AC/DC concert for, like it was in the 60s. There's actual applications in life for this, and there's sicknesses that could be made better. Like, I wish I have had multiple uncles die of cancer. None of them use cannabis.
Yeah.
Like, I was sitting there just screaming, like, why? You live in a place that you can get it. Like, you live in a medicinal state. Why are you choosing to go through this with? But it's just that mindset of it was so wrong used. And that's why I went to alcohol on my first way of kind of numbing things out, was if I would have known that cannabis was usable like it is, like I know now, I think I would have a very different life if I never started drinking.
Yeah.
But once I wasn't a teen and I couldn't use cannabis anymore, then you couldn't work. It was basically, do I want to pay my bills or do I want to use cannabis?
Yeah.
And so or roll the dice, and if anything happens, you lose your job. And again, I had multiple jobs where, like, just fluke things happen. I worked at Walmart, and a guy handed me a box and it tweaked my elbow, and they made me go right in for a urine test. Before that, you couldn't even talk to them about workers' comp or anything. Like, before you even got your arm checked, like, before they even saw you with the doctor, they were like, no, let's make sure you're clean.
Yeah.
And so it was such an anxiety-inducing thing if you wanted to use cannabis, and that's why I think it forced that stoner sit in the basement lifestyle of a lot of people, because they wanted to use cannabis, and it was kind of worth the trade of having a life just, like, basically, and using cannabis wasn't a thing back then. Whereas now, especially in Nevada, you can, like, I'm not really sure. I haven't looked into how the no drug testing for works, or what's included or excluded in that. But
I think it depends on, certain occupations. And
like driving and stuff like that. Would be like cops are not. I'm sure
not smoking.
You forfeit your right with that. But having it be more like lowering the anxiety into coming into it, because working with rec, like, getting to see people first coming in to buy it legally, like, some people were just completely shut down by it. Like, they were like whispering in there, like there was a mic, like the feds were going to come in and grab them once we gave them the bag. Like, it was a big sting. And it was like people from Indiana were like, they would, like, just be, like, dropping at their knees at the idea, because it was such a the more conservative a place they came from. It was so funny seeing, or like they would still do it kind of like they're on the street where they wouldn't make the eye contact. Like, let me get a joint.
Yeah.
we can talk, like, it's allowed, man. I promise, like, it's okay. No one's gonna tackle you when you leave. And so, but it was, you gotta see how much stress it was for people. Even just the idea of just starting to buy it legal was still stressful to them, because they still knew that, even like people just being in a database, that was mortifying to people, because they thought that their little mom and pop company in Idaho was gonna be like, hey, I heard you went to Essence last weekend, so we called and
Las
got a
Vegas.
HIPAA order from the state to go into their system, and we saw you bought a joint, like, but people were terrified that that's how they're, oh, well, no, the government will have your name then. Like, unless they have a HIPAA act, they can't, like, I'm a med person, so I'm in that system. Mm-hmm. And so for them to get your information, they have to have access to my information. Good luck getting anything that's going to allow that.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty secure system to be in. You don't really, like, the people are so terrified of all of these things, but it's that prevents it from, like, more people from trying, because you still have these people that still treat it like it is, like, they're still stressed about it like it's illegal, because like still coming, like we're a split country with
Yeah.
it, and so they're still coming from places where it's illegal, and that you notice in the places that it is legal now, there's way less of that.
leniency.
Yeah, people are more open to it. Like they're way conservative and they're cool with it still. Like, hey, whatever. If you want, if it helps you, it helps you. And I'd say most of my friends do not smoke. I actually have very few friends. I think maybe 2 or 3 of my friends are actually use cannabis. The rest are, they prefer alcohol, they prefer other things, but it's not like no one looks down on me, no one gives me any shit for that being my preference. Whereas it, like, you go back to anywhere else, like, oh, that he's our stoner friend. Like it's like they still keep that kind of shunned, like you're separate from the group, where you're the high person. And so I like that about Vegas, where it's kind of just anywhere you go, you see basically.
Yeah, not my
you can leave
friends.
in a grocery store,
Not
and
my
people are
friends,
lighting up
Tony.
a joint as they walk out the grocery store. Like the taboo part's gone, and so without the taboo part, people are more willing to use it as a treatment to things. When no one's being kind of shunned for it, then what's the big deal? Like, if it helps me, it helps me. If it doesn't help me, it doesn't help me. But there's no problem. But you go into a legal place where, like, I mean, it still baffles me that no one would try it because it was illegal. Like, that idea didn't ever dawn on me. That how many people just never bought it literally because it was illegal. They never would try it. Closed the discussion, period. But it was nothing moral. They supported anyone that wanted to use it. They didn't give care, but they just were not willing to break the law and purchase it illegally. And as soon as it was legal, they came in and tried it. And it was just, the more we lower that barrier to everything and make it less like it, we're still doing something like illegal, like having bulletproof windows that you have to walk up to and give your ID to. Like, I understand that all those are, some things aren't necessary, but like how like until people are expecting it to be something as informal as going to a Radio Shack where they can just walk in, I want this, that, and there's no paper, like no IDs, nothing, or kind of like going to a liquor store where it's just so nonchalant, where it still kind of has more of an ambiance to going into a dispensary. It's a very different feel to it.
Yeah.
And so I just think the more accessible, I guess the point is the more accessible it is to things, and like the less intimidating, the less anxiety inducing, the more people are going to try it.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And that's the, I mean, that's the reason why we have this podcast, and this is the reason why we do the things that we do. And that's why I have people like you on the show, man. And and we first of all, I want to thank you for coming on the show today, bro. I really appreciate you coming and sharing your story. Definitely takes a lot of strength to do that. Before we start wrapping up here, I want to shout out where can people find you at on Instagram?
I'm on at self-fit-filling, so self_fit_filling.
And so Charles is also a personal trainer. So if you're in the cannabis industry and you want a personal trainer that understands cannabis use while training, Charles is a great person to hit up. Just shoot him a DM. I see him all the time. You post on your story with all your clients and whatnot. And so it's really cool to see it. And, he can help you with the terpenes and whatnot. And then you're also working with
repping with smoke pipe. So it's a little milled oak pipe. Basically, it's they're soaked in hemp oil and then sealed in beeswax, so you can hold a blowtorch to it. The thing will never catch. It'll just get black. But the benefit of it, it'll hold about a full gram in it. So he calls it a 10 hitter instead of a 1 hitter.
Yeah.
And then the best part is the rounded bottom, so you can use it as your bowl slide on basically any rig or.
Nice.
It's just extremely
and it looks
versatile.
Cool.
Not like kind of just straight. And without it, literally looks like you're smoking a cigar when you hit it. And so when you're out in public, it's extremely cool. I love mine. I have multiple versions of them.
Nice.
Yeah, and so when you brought that in, I thought that was a cigar, and I was like, "Oh shit, you brought us a cigar for the show." I was like, "All right, lit."
Yeah,
but this is dope.
That's the Chubb model.
I know. And as soon as I saw it, I go, "Oh damn, JC's gonna be using this thing all the fucking time now." This is a JC pipe if I've ever seen one.
That's a nice little the screen. Once it gets all clogged, you just pop it out, jam a new one in, and you're good to go. And he has
I can figure this thing out.
The deluxe model too.
This is something that I feel like you'd be using. But thank you so much, Charles. I really appreciate it, my man. But before we wrap up, they can find you at, one more time,
self-fit-filling on Instagram.
On Instagram. Shoot him a DM. And JC, listen, dude, I forgot to tell you, I'm going on a trip for like 21 days.
Wow, that's a long time, bro.
Long time. But you know what's so funny is that in my partial of my trip, I'll be coming back next Thursday.
Okay.
And then leaving the Friday. So I'll come back for the podcast next week, but the week after I'm gone.
Nice.
But I go Denver, Reno, and I fly back for like legit like a couple hours, and I drive to LA on the Friday when I come back, and then I have to go to San Diego, and then I'll be back. And I'll be back on the show doing regular things. But in the meantime, though, what do you got going on this weekend?
This weekend, man, I don't know what is going on this weekend.
Well,
is it this weekend?
Well, this weekend we will. Well, you'll be, not me. You'll be at Acres Underground.
Yes. Okay. Yes. This weekend.
Yeah, I had to just drop his memory.
We have a lot of stuff going on.
It's crazy
on purpose, right?
Yeah.
So listen, this weekend, shout out to the man, the myth, the legend, Alex Council, over at Acres,
best in class,
and Curaleaf, the goat, right? We're going to be at Acres. We have new pre-rolls that just dropped, 500 new strains. Get down there. I'll be down there in person from 4 to 7. So come down and see me.
Go check them out. And then next Tuesday, I'll be in Reno. I'll be at Bloom Reno. I'm going to be doing a little collab with Tiffany over at the Happiest Hour.
What's up, Tiffany?
Yeah, Tiffany's going to be making they're called Cannabis, compatible cannabis drinks. I'm spacing them, but I'm really sorry. But we talked about it 2 weeks ago with LJ. And it's a myrcene shot. And so for every pre-rolled sold, the person will also get a free 5 milligram CBD myrcene terpene shot, and that's great. It's it helps. I guess it's supposed to enhance your high. I don't know the science behind it, but it's really cool. It tastes really good. I'm excited about it.
Get down to Bloom Reno.
Bloom Reno, in Midtown Reno. There's construction going on, but don't worry. And then if you're going to be in Reno next week, March 11th at Hukava, we're going to be having the second or third normal meeting, I guess. It's going to be like a first true official one. So come on down. It's going to be a great time. If you're looking to become an advocate in the cannabis industry and you live in Northern Nevada, this is a great way to get involved. And other than that, oh shit, what do we got? We also, April.
I mean,
nothing's set in stone yet. I mean, things are set in stone.
I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it is set in stone.
Fuck it.
I'm gonna say it's set in stone.
Drop the information.
All right. So listen, we 2020 season opener was incredible.
Stupid.
The dopest event that we've ever produced, featuring Paul Wall. We're gonna follow it up in Reno.
Yes.
What's good, Reno? We're coming up. Culture and Cannabis. We're gonna bring our first experience to the Bluebird in downtown Reno.
Yes.
Featuring Mike Jones. Get down there. We have
Jones.
Amazing sponsors. Mike Jones.
Yes.
And here's the thing. It's one thing to see these guys at our events, but at this particular time, you're going to be able to meet him in person.
Meet and greet
at Bloom Reno. There's going to be Take a picture, shake his hand, get a selfie. We're going to have mad doorbusters. Get down to Bloom Reno.
And it's 420 weekend in Reno.
Shout out to Christine.
My birthday's the day before. Shout out to Christine.
Yeah.
Shit's about to be wild in Reno. But listen, that's the podcast, folks. Thank you so much for coming on the Thanks for coming, not calling the podcast. Thank you for listening or watching the podcast. This is the Culture Cannabis Podcast. We'll see you guys next Thursday. Peace.
Peace.